Bitcoin is close to becoming worthless.
Let's go. Now, what's the Bitcoin?
Bitcoin's like rat poison.
Yeah. Oh,
The greatest scam in history.
let's get it.
Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
Yeah.
Alright, you ungovernable misfits. I'm your host, Max. Everybody knows that Bitcoin is useless, worthless, and doomed to fail. But what if everyone's wrong? What if it's the system that is doomed to fail? Join me as I speak to some of the brightest people in the space and slither to the deepest, darkest depths of the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Welcome back, everyone. Today's episode is with Daddy Warbits. You might recognise the name from Twitter. He's been involved in traditional finance for a very long time, and it was interesting to hear his perspective on things. Don't get me wrong, although he is involved in traditional finance, this guy is a proper Bitcoiner through and through. I really enjoyed this conversation. We had a long chat offline as well. I sometimes wish we had those recorded, to be honest. Sometimes they're the best parts, but at nearly 2 hours, I thought maybe it would have to be 2 parts or get him on again. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy listening. And before we dive in, I just want to say thank you to the sponsors. Firstly, thank you to CoinFloor UK. If anyone's listening to this and you're not taking my advice and you're not buying no KYC, and I do understand that sometimes it is tricky, and when you're first getting in, you might just think, you know what, I just need to get some Bitcoin, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just know the trade-offs. But if you are going to buy some Bitcoin and you are going to go KYC, then there really is nowhere better. That's CoinFloor UK. Next up is Crypto Cloaks. Crypto Cloaks are absolutely awesome. They have got some incredible products. We actually featured them pretty early on for 21ism because all of us absolutely loved what they were doing. You can personalize your node cases. They do block MITs. They do all sorts of things. They have those 3D printers running all day, every day, and orders are coming in fast. So check them out at cryptocloaks.com. Enjoy the show.
Timed to perfection, on the dot to the second. I like it.
How are you?
Very well. How are you?
You know, I'm like everyone right now. I'm all over the place, but I'm good.
I heard the bottle pop. What are we drinking?
This is tequila, Fortaleza. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it.
Oh, very nice.
That was an inadvertent bottle pop. I got a couple minutes behind here, so I'm behind on my setup, but I'm settled in now.
Cool. What setup have you got?
No, you know, this is kind of I've got a little office that I carved out in my basement. It's just got a little Nexago webcam probably spying on me. But I got it early on for the Zoom economy. So, I needed nothing fancy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. I'm currently in a sweat box at the moment where no aircon and can't have the fan because the mic picks it up, which is good.
You're in a small, are you in an apartment setup? I heard you say recently you haven't been getting out much lately. Or have you been cooped up inside?
Yeah, I've been cooped up inside just working on all sorts of things for 21ism and the show and lots of editing and videos and all sorts of things. So, I've been stuck in. But we've got a house at the moment and, you know, we're backing right onto a river and nice fields and stuff. So it's not that there's nowhere to go. It's just that I've just haven't had the time to get out. So I need to make the most of it. But the house should be going in 3 weeks. Fingers crossed, everything going well with the solicitors and everything, it should be gone. And then I'll be stacking very, very hard.
Very good. Yeah, we look forward to following that, seeing how it goes. But yeah, it's been crazy the last, you must feel more so than me, even the kind of the roller coaster. And I don't even mean the price roller coaster. I just mean I was thinking about this, do you ever get sick of people talking to you about Bitcoin, right? Because I've spent so long not having people to talk to about it in my own life. And still most of the people that I care about, showing why this is the future, they don't seem keen to hear it. But now it's like it's the global news cycle has now been hijacked by it. So all of a sudden, like with this pipeline hack, and you get like I've all the people that I've been talking to about this at work, we're starting to see investments in the Bitcoin industry, and this is in the institutional finance world. But it's all when you talk about it with those people in that world, it really isn't the same. It actually, it's just not as it's not the same as when you talk about it with proper Bitcoiners, if that term is allowed.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know exactly what you mean. I assume that's your sort of you're in traditional finance as a career, are you? Or
yeah, I am. It's been I've done it for almost a little less than 2 decades now. Like probably 15 years, 16 years. But it's been harder and harder to do since like that. That's actually really how I got into Bitcoin, was the global financial crisis. And I think before that I was one of the libertarian leaning types, and then kind of found Ron Paul during his campaigns. And then when I saw the whole thing fall apart before my eyes, but then get put back together in a way that seemed not to fix any of the problems, that was a major kind of awakening thing. And it's so odd because I've been struggling with that for a little over a decade now, with trying to reconcile how crazy the world of finance is, but also what else am I supposed to do? Yeah, it's been a lot has changed in the last 12 months, because I think at this point I might have had doubts in prior to that about whether or not I was maybe just being I don't even know what they're too idealistic or something like that. But seeing what's happened over the last 12 months, and in particular the last this year to date, starting with what happened with GameStop and those equities, I can't. You can never go back after you've seen that kind of thing. It's just it's an untenable position. But yeah, it's traditional finance, and Bitcoin is starting to make its way into that world. So now I field questions from people who are all of a sudden experts that I work with, and one guy yesterday is like, "Oh, so it turns out you can really hack these Bitcoin passwords a lot more easily than you were talking about." And I'm just so yeah, that's where we are.
that must be very interesting coming from that background and having these conversations, because like you said, the conversations that you're going to have with proper Bitcoiners, people who are here for a reason, people who have taken the time to study, people who really understand the implications that this technology is going to have on the world, is a totally different conversation to somebody who has been involved for a couple of weeks, sees number go up. They think they know everything because of, because they have a traditional finance background. They think, oh, well, if I understand that, if I understand these markets, then I must understand Bitcoin. And I imagine it's quite laughable, these conversations. Like you just said, the hacking of a Bitcoin wallet because they've read some stupidity online. You just think, how long is it going to take for these guys to catch up? Like, what is it going to take for them to understand? Or do you think they won't ever understand because you have to be searching for something already to really understand and bother to learn?
Yeah, it depends, right, on how long it takes for this to, if it truly is inevitable, it depends on how long it takes for them to just get dragged into it with no alternative. And I think that's right. Like, in a weird way, it's fitting, right? Like it's the reverse of the Cantillon effect, in the sense that these guys are in theory, they should be the best positioned to understand this thing. They're in financial markets every day. They can see what's happening with, the repo markets in real time. They saw what happened with the financial crisis. They see what's happening with the money printing. But they will be last to get to Bitcoin. I've been thinking about it because I have a guy that I've worked with since 2008. And I know that I've spoken with Bitcoin to him. Like we spoke about Bitcoin as early as, say, 2014, like just before Mt. Gox. And throughout my career, I've sort of been consistently telling him about this thing. and he's always laughed it off. And then last year in the fall was the first time he started to not laugh it off. And then in the the winter turn of the year after the election in the U.S., and he started to think that maybe the political regime that he lived in isn't as secure as he once thought it was. He's now like outstacked me, and he's gone ape on it. But it took him that long. And the funny thing about it is we still, and I think people like him who manage money on behalf of other people, they still feel as though it's too risky and not the right investment for their mandates for their clients. So it's like the very last money that will come into this is going to be that big institutional, stodgy money. And in some ways, I think that's kind of beautiful, right? Like you had idealistic crypto anarchists who were first to it, and then the people that wanted to roll up their sleeves and figure out how the technology works, how to mine, and then it slowly makes its way through the internet ideological networks, for lack of a better word. And here we are wondering when the lords of finance are gonna realize.
It's beautiful, really. It makes it all the better to know that, because it gives other people a chance, gives a chance to reshape things. And the last people we really want involved are the people who fucked everything up in the first place, in my opinion. So like, I'm quite happy about it. And obviously you're going to have the odd person like yourself who is already in these markets. You understand the traditional financial markets, but then you've seen this, and for whatever reason, it's spoken to you and you've bothered to actually go, right, well, I'm going to do a deep dive on this. And now you are where you are. But it feels like like some people are predisposed to it. And I don't know whether it is how you've been brought up, or whether it's just life experiences, or whether I don't know. It seems there's normally a common thread, and normally freedom and being completely sick to death of how the world is currently working. And you find this thing and you're like, this is answering so many questions. Like the questions are already there, but you haven't found the answer. And then this feels like just the answer. So that's what makes you dive deeper. And I wonder, maybe some of these guys just don't see the problem because life's okay for them. I don't know. What's your view on that?
Yeah, that has a lot to do with it. The life's okay phenomenon. Like and you can imagine when you're talking to people like this about why you would want wealth that, you can cross borders with in your head, or why you would want to be able to move in stealth and understand the privacy aspects. And, like to have that kind of untraceable, unconfiscatable, immutable money, it makes all the sense in the world to people like us. But when you sit in a meeting where people are talking about, how many basis points of spread they can earn on a government bond, and they're living off interest and everything is fine, it's such a foreign concept for them to consider anything but that. Like it's an inability to imagine the world existing any way other than the way it exists right now, even though history is full of examples of paradigm shifts, But it's the other interesting thing is the people on the flip side, because as you ask about what's the common denominator, it really is a good question, because the other thing I think about it are all the handful of friends I made pre-Bitcoin who were the radical libertarian Ron Paul types. We live in an area that's otherwise very blue, progressive, woke, very anti-freedom, very nanny state, and none of them, they are all still no coiners after all this time. So it's amazing because they have all of the pieces as well. They have all of the tools to understand it. They know how wrong everything is. They probably have some physical gold, or they have some gold in a vault that, someone like Peter Schiff sold them. But yeah, it's not even like, sometimes the people who are ideologically ready for it just aren't ready for the technological side of it. They're not ready to invest in something they don't understand and force themselves to understand something that's brand new. So it's a challenge. And I think it's an important thing to keep in mind. Like, none of this is going to happen overnight, even though at times it feels like it's right around the corner. It's almost like we just have to keep this thing alive in our lifetime and let next generations take it forward.
Have you given thought to what might have made you align with this technology, or make you recognize it so quickly? You mentioned 2008 and you were working in financial markets at the time. Was that something, and you said, oh, this has been then pieced back together in a way that obviously didn't please you. Was it something you were already searching for? Were you looking at what had happened in 2008 and you were like, fuck, this is really bad, like there has to be something else? Or was it sort of you stumbled across this and then put the pieces together?
I think probably, well, more like the former, but I caveat, like in a huge way, I try to always assume that I don't know the shit. You know what I mean? Like I always try to assume that it just happens that way. And it used to be detrimental in a way. I would always think everyone knew more than me, and that would I maybe in an industry where it's how compelling you can be with your case, it's usually how loud you can bark and how much you can talk over someone else, or how much you can bullshit. So I always approached everything as though more from a perspective of I need to figure out what's going on, because I assumed everyone else knew what was going on and I just sort of needed to play catch up. I think I came across Austrian economics before I'd heard about Bitcoin, just reading the intro to libertarian philosophy and economics kind of stuff. And so I would sit and stew in that all day. I think, and even when I first heard about Bitcoin, it took years before I was able to figure out a year or so to figure out how to buy it. And then I lost it because, Mt. Gox. And then it was sort of, you put it on the back burner for a while, and then you kind of revisit it again. And it probably wasn't until actually you know what it was? It was forcing myself to learn how to take self-custody that really made it click how all of it works together. And that was when it went from being something other than just a nice idea in theory to something that was more tangible for me, and you could really understand. So there was a lot of priming on the economic side, and just the idea that human beings should be able to interact on a voluntary basis with as little interference as we as a society or people can manage. I don't really know what that means, except to say that I tend to think in minimal interventions into people's free and voluntary interactions, and this all lined up with that ethos. So it was all really cool to learn about that. But then, it's like once you actually start rolling up your sleeves, you take possession, you see how it works, and it starts to change the way you think about things. Again, this gets back to the last 12 months, seeing it's almost like you look at the parallel economies that we live in right now, the parallel worlds, right? You have one world where everyone's negative. Everyone's looking to, figure out who they can take from next to pay the next guy. It's very dishonest. There's nothing optimistic about it. It's fighting for scraps, right? And then on the flip side, you've got this world of, once you start looking at the people who are motivated in this Bitcoin economy, you see the optimism, you see passion, you see people who are saying look, we only have rights because they're rights that we can take. And that's exactly what we're doing. So it's really, it was that. I don't think it was anything about, and look, it's a progression too. I'm sure that everyone's thinking about how this fits into our individual lives and our life as a global community of Bitcoin users. That's going to evolve over time. But I think it was, primed for the economics of it. The tech came really hard and still comes very hard, although the improvements that we've seen in the last couple of years are just 18 months, mind-boggling how much more, how many more tools we have. But what's really hit at home is seeing how much the network is growing and propagating, and the most interesting things, like what you're doing with mesh tadels and the permaculture stuff, people bringing not just the econ to it, but bringing the best of what they used to do in fiat world, or what they were passionate about in fiat world, whether it's because they have time now or whether it's because they've decided to reprice their time, bringing that to Bitcoin. That's been the most interesting thing to see, is this is the ticket to participating in that economy with those people. And to me, that's what we're buying. That's why you own Bitcoin.
Yeah, I completely get that. And it's interesting you've you like the permaculture side and the Meshtadel idea, because I've always sort of thought, oh, well, anyone who's really deep in finance and knowledgeable with that will probably sort of stay in their lane, and they'll find, because it's, these rabbit holes are, as we all know, they're endless, or whichever route you want to take, it's just endless. And I always thought, well, these financial guys are going to come in, they're going to find the finance side interesting, and they're going to then stay in that lane. But what I'm finding is a lot of people get to a point where they go, I can't be more confident in what's happening. I can't be more confident in where I've placed my money, but then what's next? And like, if we are going to build these new communities, if we are going to build like social layers on top of Bitcoin, and we use that as the layer of trust, and then we have trade between Bitcoiners and all these things that are discussed, like, that's where it really gets interesting. Because after a while, I found, for me anyway, I don't come from a financial background. I was involved in property and some bits and pieces, but not traditional finance. And I got to a point about a year and a half in where I just went, not really, I don't really find this interesting anymore. I'm confident enough that I don't need to look at any more, million graphs a day. I don't need to run the numbers every day. I don't need to look at the price every day, because I can see it. Like, I can feel what's going on. I can feel there's a draw here. And then those other things are what become really interesting. And actually, I think they're what are going to move the price as well, because they're going to bring other types in. The permaculture stuff, you might have someone who has no interest in finance, no interest in the freedom aspect, but then they're like, oh, what's this permaculture thing? And they hear about what Bitcoiners are doing, and it draws more and more normal people in, which I think is not necessary, but it would be nice, wouldn't it? It'd be nice to have more people have a chance to jump on this life raft.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about, everyone talks about the circular economy and bootstrapping that, and that is definitely that's the only part of it that we as individuals control in some ways, right? Like, we can hold Bitcoin, we can use Bitcoin, and then we can choose to do things with our lives that that build that economy. That's the challenge right now. It seems you probably will have thought something similar. You want to give more of your time and effort and your energy to it, but then you also think, all right, well, I've got to pay the bills. Maybe I have a family, or I'm trying to start a family. So I can't necessarily totally sever my fiat paycheck. And, you also never feel like you own enough. So any extra fiat you can put aside and convert, like, you want to do that as well. But unless you're a dev, or, like, it's very, up to this point, it hasn't been obvious how an average person can just sort of like participate in the Bitcoin economy. But I think that's changing now with all of these people bringing their various interests into it. And, maybe Bitcoin is secondary, or they found it because they found us through something else. But that's the part that I think is going to be the most interesting to watch, putting aside, the financial guys, like you talk about, that's, I go back and forth between viewing that as a risk and as just irrelevant speed bump. And I think you kind of have to believe it's the latter. Like, if we can't survive people over financializing Bitcoin, then Bitcoin was not properly conceived from the beginning. But fortunately, I think it was. And by that, I mean, like, I think we're going to have a tide of that to sort of deal with, like, rehypothecation and, Bitcoin derivative products, and people thinking the value of a Bitcoin is one thing because it's manipulated, and that manipulation can persist for a long time. But ultimately, we all know one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. And if we're building things completely away from that to the extent possible, then, like, I think that's the goal, is to isolate yourself from that outside world as much as you possibly can afford to. And that goes back to why it's frustrating that now unfortunately the Bitcoin is permeating into my fiat world, and it's actually making it's a negative in some ways, because now it's like a part of my day that I have to talk to to finance bros who are looking for the next green coin as part of my day job.
Yeah, I can imagine that's incredibly frustrating, because the normal conversations I have with no coiners are pretty surface level. So you get the normal, like, a text every time the price dumps, and you're like, oh yeah, well, Elon's not so interested in this anymore. Obviously, it's not going to be, it's not going to work, is it? And you're like, oh, just fuck off. And then you get this, you get the text like, a couple of weeks later, how do I buy? What am I doing? Blah, blah, blah. And that is annoying enough. But where I really find it frustrating is the ones who have sort of ignored you for years and years and years, and then they get involved, and then they're suddenly the expert, and they're telling you everything that you've told them for however many years. And I actually find that really annoying, because it's like the conversations you want to be having are ones where you're learning. And that's kind of the thing. That's like why I made this pod, because I got so sick to death of, firstly, like no one wanted to talk to me, and if they were going to talk to me, it was so surface level and so basic that it was irritating. So I was like, well, how do I speak to people that I can learn from? And that's kind of how this came about, because that is the exciting bit, not just, I don't know, maybe you've had the same thing. You just get to a point where it's just not fucking interesting anymore. It's just like you've seen every model, you've seen every graph, you've seen everyone comparing it to every other asset. You've seen it all and you've heard it all. And it's like, well, I'm not learning anymore. I'm literally just like, I'm giving myself hopium and just hyping myself up, which is like fun for a bit. But you do hit a wall where it's like, yeah, I know. Let's learn something new.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's not and the other thing about it is if you approach it trying to like trade, or, if, again, that goes back to that mentality, and maybe it's not second nature for everyone, but I do think it's becoming second nature and obvious to, at least, like, I don't talk to any of the Bitcoiners out there, but for a handful, but listening to, to all the amazing content that's out there, you kind of hear it. It's one thing for the people to be like, I don't know if you saw Max Kaiser get up there at the conference and he'd be like, oh, we're never going to sell, like that rah-rah stuff. That's cool. Like, that's all well and good. But you hear something different when, again, going back, I hate to say proper Bitcoiners, but the kind of people that are using Bitcoin as a building block in their life, rather than as like, okay, I'm going to try to time markets and I'm going to try to become fiat wealth. I'm going to have visions like, and look, I did the same thing. Obviously, every pump that I've lived through, I've like extrapolated that pump 3 or 4 pumps forward. And I've thought about myself having like a staff and a yacht and like a big house and all that cool stuff. And you can't help but do that sometimes. But now, and I think this is why it's become so much more of an emotional roller coaster, even though the price has never mattered. Like, the price matters less now to me than it ever has, but it's also become much more of a roller coaster for me, because it feels like now we're fast approaching the point where this is no longer just a nice option to have, but a necessity. You see, like, I mean, the world was just locked down, right? Like, people were taken out of their houses at gunpoint for, whatever local infraction they violated with respect to the movement restrictions and whatever else. I mean, like, we seem to be going down or accelerating towards a really bad place. And so that's why this whole Bitcoin parallel economy has taken on new meaning. It's just way more important now than it ever has been. So it makes the price way less relevant. Like, all you really care about is the network functioning. Can my coins, are my coins mine, or my UTXOs mine? Can I figure out how to custody everything? And this is a whole separate can of worms that's, I think, a never ending struggle. But, the basics of the custody game, like, you want to be private, but you also want it to be able to outlive you. And, putting all those pieces together and forcing yourself to think about your family and intergenerational wealth, it really, you can't help but change the way you think when you're thinking in those terms. So yeah, it's, in that regard, it really has, it takes a hold of certain people in a way that it doesn't take a hold of others. And I think seeing as many more people and hearing as many more voices from all over the world. That's the other great thing about listening to, who you've spoken with, is like, you hear all these different accents, you hear people from all over the world. You really do, because I think that's one of the most powerful things about this, is not just how, like, the sheer numbers that we get, but it's where do we have people what are how activated are those people? How talented are those people? How engaged and committed are those people? And yeah, that's, so there's this huge cause for optimism here, but you also feel how fragile it is because the world also seems to be closing in around it,
Is this something that you've noticed for a long time? You're mentioning the world just being a little bit crazy at the moment, to say the least. Is this something that you've always seen? Because it seems to me the people that I tend to communicate with the most, this like core group on Bitcoin Twitter, and the people I've invited on the pod and people I spend time with through 21ism, the more time I spend with them, the more I realize that, like, if we were at school, like we were kids, we'd probably have been quite similar and got on. Questioned authority, have a sort of fuck you streak in there that's like I will not be told what to do, and if something is wrong, it's wrong, and I won't yield on it. And it's something that, like, I've noticed with almost everyone that I deal with. And I wondered, is that something that you've had growing up? Were you always questioning, and did you find that got you in trouble before you sort of found Bitcoin, is before you found these other people that were very similar?
Yeah, I was very what would be defiant, I think would probably be the right word, like rebellious and defiant, but not in a troublemaking way. Because I always was, it was a weird dynamic. Like the teachers, some really liked me, others really didn't like me at all. But it was always like I guess it was a matter of I always, I would call out the bullshit, but I wouldn't do it in a way that it was like, just troublemaking for the sake of troublemaking. It would be like there had to be an art to it. Like you had to be calling someone out for something that was really. So I went to Catholic school, which may explain some of it if anyone out there has been Catholic.
Me too. Yeah, I went to a military Catholic school. Yeah.
So you understand. Unfortunately, I think it's hard. I couldn't really. You hit something there that I probably need to go see a therapist about. But no, in truth, it was like I got a lot of discipline out of it. But I ended up being this person who, and maybe that was a good thing. Like I became a very independent thinker. I thought a lot of what we were being sold as, unquestionable truth was clearly bullshit. And I think in retrospect, now that I'm thinking about it, that just made it so that, like, at an early age, the encounter of something that was truly bullshit and obviously bullshit to, say, a 12-year-old coming from the authoritative mouth of like a 70-year-old nun, you sort of like, at that point, in a weird way, it's like you've seen the curtain fall a little bit. So yeah, I definitely have had that streak, and I think that leads to more of an independent streak where you think to yourself, these people aren't they may or may not have my best interests in mind, but it seems like they don't have their shit together, and so I, as a person, have to take accountability and responsibility for myself, and that starts to lead you down the journey of, a little bit of the prepper mentality, a little bit of the, okay, you should always have some food on hand in case things go wrong. You should have a bug out location. So I think, the contrarianism and the defiance also has a flip side to it, which is an independence and a desire for autonomy and a desire to, not be so dependent on other people, because then other people might tell you what you have to do in exchange for what it is you're depending on. I think that's probably how I am where I am.
And it's that fairness thing as well. It's like it's so often, especially like the few years leading up to finding Bitcoin, I'd been in enough industries and dealt with enough people that I had become a little bit disillusioned. I was pretty sick of the way that things were working, and I was just like, what was really pissing me off was fairness, which sounds like a little bit childish, but I was just like constantly feeling that things were not fair, and I was dealing with, dealing with counsel or dealing with solicitors or dealing with a property sale or dealing with whatever it was, and it would always come to a point where it's like, well, whatever's the biggest organization, right or wrong, whether the rule makes any sense or not, whether it's fair or not, they'll win and you're fucked. It was getting to a point where I was just like ready to drop out of society completely. I was just like, I don't want to deal with this shit anymore. I fucking hate liars. I hate liars. I hate cheats. I hate all this shit. And I was just like in this horrible mess in my head. And then I found Bitcoin, and I was like, once it clicked, I was like, oh fuck! Like this is like the old school sort of mentality of like trust and like actual agreements and like none of the red tape and none of the bullshit and none of that. And like, oh my God, it got me excited. Like, fuck, it got me excited. And then the idea when people talk about price, like you were saying, like, it's not about the price. It's really not. It's like, it for me, it's just like, fuck you. Every single time that something's been unfair, every single time that someone's taking advantage or things are not set up in the correct way, like, I just think of that and I think, no, I can't sell. No way can I sell, because I can't allow for this to continue. And I think once you've got that under your skin, it's like this rebellious, like, no, I want change or I want nothing. And once you get there, it doesn't matter if we're 10,000, 100,000, a million, 10 million, it doesn't fucking matter. And there will be some things like, yeah, you go, okay, I want to pay off my mortgage, or I want to make sure that my kids have what they need. I want to make sure that we have a nice home, or want the things like that. But outside of that, I'm never looking at like products or services. I'm never looking at like a new pair of trainers or a new sofa or something and going, oh, that means more to me than sats, because nothing really does.
It's funny. You're like, what are the words from that song? You're singing my life with your words. It's there was definitely, and I think this was probably right around when I first heard about Bitcoin. My wife and I were at a Free State Project conference. There was a project to get a bunch of Americans to figure out, if we love freedom, what's the best state for freedom, and let's go there and try to affect change at the local level. So we went to a seminar there, and there was someone that talked about Bitcoin. But at that time, that was exactly where I was when you said disaffected, wanted to give it all. It was just like, I just wanted to, and I still, and this is the thing, come in full circle, I still want this. But at the time, it was like, all I want to do is just sell all this shit, and I want to move out to a piece of land somewhere. I want to figure out how to grow my own food, because at some point you're not going to, and I think we've been duped into thinking that we're still getting real, quote unquote, real food at the grocery store. Like I always assumed that, it would be harder and harder and harder to get whatever you want to, like organic, grown the old fashioned way, fruits and vegetables. I think it's actually impossible to do that at the grocery store now, unless you have a local farmer that you trust or you do it yourself. But I thought it would be more like the supply chains wouldn't hold or something like that, and people would be forced to do it on their own. It turns out you just get a cheaper and cheaper replacement every year, and you can keep it going for a long time. But that was exactly, I was like, I want out of this whole economy. I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want to pay taxes to fund dishonest wars anymore. Like, and the fact of the matter is, like, as much as I would complain about things, I'm still in that world taking that paycheck. So you go in, so then every day you either have to confront the reality of like, okay, it's time for something different, or I have to just shut up and accept that all of these things that I don't like about the world are the things that are actually, that I'm working for every day. That's what I'm coming in and giving my time to every day. So I complete, and that's what I mean. Like going back to it, you think about during all the pumps, you project forward, you think about what it's going to be like to be rich and et cetera, et cetera. Now it's like, I think about, the success, like, grand slam home run would be that it's very hard for most people somehow to figure out how to do anything other than scrape by. And if you know someone who can support you in a local citadel, who's, like someone's got access to food, we have logistics, and this is pie in the sky, but we have our own logistics networks. We have our own communications networks. To me, like living on a homestead site where I just mostly like feed my family throughout the day and then enjoy their company by night, that's the dream now. That's the moon, right? The moon is basically living like a peasant in Europe in 500-600 years ago, but with a little bit of modern technology.
Yeah, because what you're buying is time. And you sort of learn eventually that that's the most valuable thing. And like I went through all that. I had a bit of a weird. I've never like gone into it fully on this show because I don't want to dox myself. But I had a very fucking weird childhood, and it forced me very, very young to take responsibility for myself. And so I then got obsessed with having stability because it was very, very unstable. So I had this obsession from about probably like 10 or 9 or something that I was going to buy a house. That was like my thing. I was just like, I'm going to fucking buy a house. And so I would like from about 7, 8, 9, I was selling porn on floppy disks. I was, like seriously, I was like sneaking in, like getting the images. People do it to order of like, like I want lesbians, and I'd be like, cool, I can provide that. And so, and I was still the floppy disks from the computer department.
What do you fit on that? You fit like five, 6 pictures?
Yeah, like not a lot. Like it was, 5, 6, 10, whatever.
Times were tough back then,
Yeah, times exactly.
What that was like.
And so I'd sell them, and then your markup was 100% because I nicked the floppy disks, and then I'd go and buy cigarettes so I could sell them, and just it would go on and on and on, and so that was my obsession: was I want money, I want stability, I want a home. And so I bought my first property at like 15. I bought my first property, and I was so excited, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is!" I'm going to be my own man. I've got this stuff, and it took about another 10 years to realize it doesn't matter how many properties you have. It doesn't matter what car you're driving. It doesn't matter what clothes you're wearing, what girl you're fucking. You are not going to be happy unless you feel you have purpose. And I didn't. Like, nothing I was doing in life to earn the money was actually meaning anything or fixing anything or helping anyone. So I felt like shit. And nothing that I did would allow me more time because I was only piling on more and more and more things to do to make more money. So you get to a point where you're like, well, I have no time. I can't enjoy the things I have anyway. They don't make me feel good anyway. And so you get to this, like, not peak, but like, I had the things that I dreamt of when I was a kid, and I was so deeply unhappy from it that's the point where you go, fuck, what is there then? And so just really, really lucky to find Bitcoin, because otherwise I don't know where it would have gone. It would have been like, well, there's no point to anything then, is there? Because I can't fix these bigger structures. I can't fix what's wrong in the world. And then what's the point? But that's where this Bitcoin is hope. Bitcoin is like, we can see real change, and we can have these moments, like you're saying, you want to live on a farm, you've got your family, you can sit out and barbecue with them and tell stories and enjoy each other company and teach your children rather than just send them off to some school and never see them, and pass on your knowledge and not just your genetics, but like principles and ideas to the future generations. And once that clicks, you're like, okay, this is life. Like, this is what it's about, and this is how you enjoy it.
When I'm curious, when you said it was like, first of all, that was it's pretty fucking amazing that you managed to figure out how to buy yourself real property at an age when most of us were like, dicking around in high school, trying to chase cheerleaders and things like that. But,
I did
so you
that
said
too.
It was like, it was even better. But so you said it was like 20-ish years. Like, what was it that made you have that realization of, like, I guess because it's very similar. I would call it self-actualization. It happened around the same time for me, I want to say. Sorry, I'm just going to silence the phone. I thought I did. When did that happen? And do you remember, like, what was it, just discovering Bitcoin that you were like, all of a sudden everything else makes sense? Or was there something else where you said, I have to, like, take a more active role in my own happiness in life?
No, it was a mixture of starting painting again and Bitcoin that sort of came along at the same time. So I completely threw like a temper tantrum, wobbly, quit my job, closed down my business, stopped doing all my work, just completely I was like, nope, not doing it anymore. Fuck this shit. Completely broke down, and then just started painting all day, all night. 7 days a week, just getting high from the moment I woke up to the minute I slept, just paint, smoke, like listen to fucking weird podcasts and all learn about all different random shit while I'm doing it. And I found Bitcoin in that time when I was like open to other possibilities, and the anger that was running through my head, like I already understood debasement of money, I already understood from property why these assets go up, I already had an understanding of like how unfair things were, and that's why I think when I found Bitcoin in that time, I was still pretty depressed when I was doing my painting and stuff, but it was like a coping mechanism. And I found this, and it probably took a year until it like really clicked. But yeah, completely filled me with hope, completely changed my outlook, completely, I don't know, yeah, rewired my brain.
So this is, I'm gonna I'm gonna put you on the spot with this one, but like, let's just say tomorrow, somehow something came along and nuked Bitcoin. I don't know what that is. It's funny because people spend a lot of time thinking adversarially, and we're all concerned about these edge cases and all these crazy things that could happen that will ruin it for us. Like, when you actually sit down and try to plan out, like, okay, so explain to me the demise of Bitcoin, it actually it's pretty hard to do now that I'm thinking about it, like what would kill it for you tomorrow. But let's just say there was a double spend, so somehow, some way, it's like, or put it this way, how there's always those questions that you ask no coiners when you say, and someone else told me this, so I don't want to take, but when you say to a no coiner, what would it take to change your mind? At what point would you reevaluate things and say, perhaps I was wrong? So let's say that happened tomorrow and you all of a sudden thought, I'm completely wrong about this. What would you do?
Good question. I'm going to steal that. You should do your own podcast. That's a good question.
I'm asking because that's like, when I say, the emotional roller coaster thing, like that's the one thing. And I think that's in some ways why it's so obvious that this is what's worth fighting for in the world is, it like, what else is there that's more important for,
nothing.
It really and truly, like, there's really nothing worth my time more than making sure that when my kids are, when they have children, when their children have children, that there's, even if they don't somehow I fuck up my multi-sig configuration and a lawyer steals it or something, like, even if they don't have whatever Bitcoin I'm going to try to leave them, if we can leave Bitcoin to humanity, it seems like there's nothing that's more worthy of our time than that. Because it really does. Agree. I mean, it's hard to imagine what we would be doing right now. I mean, look, we'll figure it out, right? People will still talk. People will still network. We still have, common rallying cries and common things that we care about. But man, that's why I say it's such an emotional roller coaster, because anytime you think that there's a possibility that comes into that the existence of Bitcoin comes into question, like, that is a hill that I think you have to be willing to maybe we're not all going to line up and die on that hill, but there's probably some pretty drastic things we're willing to do before we get off that hill.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it would. I've thought fairly deeply about this because I've realized that I've tied my hopes, my future, and a lot of my personality's tied up in it. I'd feel quite lost if it went away. I'd feel quite, not quite, I'd feel very lost. I'd feel very, well, all my hope would probably completely disappear because, yes, there may be something else and humans are good at inventing stuff and we'll probably come up with something, hopefully, but the rest of the world, like outside of Bitcoin, to me is so bleak with everything that's going on. Like, I'm really, really, really concerned. And so if it went away, yeah, it would crush me, I think. Like, I don't, like, being realistic with myself, I'd like to say, oh yeah, I'd move on, I'd be fine, but I don't think I would. I'd be very, very, very sad.
I feel the same way, and that's why I kind of wanted to ask, because it worries me to some degree, as a person, as I'm sure many of us are, who's interested in just making sure that we're as strong as we can be on the inside, like diamond hands mentally, right? It's important to think about what happens if this isn't it. Now, fortunately, again, I think it is it, but I think that also just goes to reinforcing, that when you think about what am I going to do with the next minute of my time, the next hour, like what am I going to start building towards, 20, 30, 50, 100 years hence. Like that's, I don't really know anything else that I could say that about that. If like even things that you used to, the United States Constitution, you say, oh, well, if there was no United States Constitution, then, my whole world would fall. Like, I can't really think of anything comparable. Obviously a person, you could have devastating life experiences that affect you as an individual, family issues, death, like loss, that kind of thing. Sure, putting all that aside, as people, I just can't think of anything that's more precious to us than this. And like, so that's why I think whenever you have those moments all the time where you doubt it and you're like, could this really be, is this, am I deluding myself? Am I coping? Am I looking for an escape from a really shitty situation? And this happens to be like, even if that's true, I think it's worth it, right? It's worth the effort. It's worth the time. And as you said, if we don't have something meaningful to struggle for, then you really will. I don't see how you find happiness without struggle and without meaning. Yeah.
And the friendships along the way, I've made stronger. This is another thing I thought of. And, a question for you is like, I assume you're fairly deep into this, like I am, like, again, won't fully dox myself, but 90+% of my net worth is in this thing, and it will be close to 100 soon. And so if the thing went to zero, would you trade the experiences, the knowledge, and the people that you've met for, would you go back and change it, or would you accept it? Because to me, the value is not just in the asset, the value is in the networks around it. And for me, certainly, I've met some of my best friends. I've met people who, like, literally today, if I went and reached out, I had an issue today, and if I'd have reached out to any family or any friend outside of Bitcoin, they wouldn't have helped me. They just wouldn't have. No question. I know they wouldn't. And someone straight away in my Bitcoin network's like, look, whatever you need, I'm here. I'll do it. Just tell me. And to me, that's invaluable. And I wondered with you, if it went to zero, would you feel like you'd lost, or would you still feel like you'd gained?
So one thing is, when you say if it went to zero, I'm actually psychologically prepared for a scenario where it goes to quote unquote zero and it still works. And I don't quite know what that looks like, but just assume that you couldn't exchange it for fiat, period. And so therefore the dollar price was zero because, no one who has fiat on an exchange, there's no observable market for the price of Bitcoin. I still think it could work in that scenario. So even if it quote unquote goes to zero, like if we're assuming there's no blockchain that's printing blocks every 10 minutes and, like the whole project has failed, then I have to say, I agree with you. Like that's one of the things that's come with the shift in time preference. And a lot of it has changed due to not going to an office every day. I just do this kind of intellect, like I do the mental math for myself. I think, all right, I used to spend 10 to 11 hours a day, 5 days a week in an office with the same dozen people, that I've seen more or less with some revolving door, but more or less the same people for the last decade plus. And I think about how much time I spend talking to them now. And I don't really talk to them at all. But before it used to be like, hey, you want to go grab a bite to eat for lunch. You want to have our lunch together. You want to get a cup of coffee. You would have these friends that were friends only because it was a matter of you're both in the same place at the same time. And then at the same time, I also have been very diligent and like purposeful about, I hate to say it, but cutting people out of my life over the last 12 months who aren't on the shared mission, because for the reasons we just talked about, like there are people whose names I probably will never know who are NIMs on end-to-end encrypted chat services who I'm like, those are like in a weird way, those are my people, like those are my friends now. And I've got a lot. So if I take all of the time that I used to invest in my coworker relationships and my professional network and, my college friends, when the best you would get was, let's go out and have drinks. It'll be a fun time. We'll all have a bad hangover tomorrow and then we'll all move on with our lives. And there's no thought to even what are we going to do together next weekend or in a year from now. Forget about what kind of civilization are we going to build to bequeath to our descendants, the way Bitcoin people think, right? Like when you shift from the world of transactional social relationships to, I'm going to invest my time in people that I care about. And this isn't even a Bitcoin thing per se. Like I have a few friends who I've just taken more of an interest in what they're doing because I believe in what they're doing. And I think that, my time is better spent. Like I want to help enrich them to the extent that I can. And I want to be enriched by them over a much longer time horizon than drinks tonight or lunch at the office tomorrow. And so in that regard, it really has changed the way I deal with my time from a social allocation. And yeah, I think it would be almost as big it might be a bigger disappointment. Like play the other scenario out. Let's say number go up to infinity and we all have a lot of paper wealth, but somehow they manage to cut off our lines of communication. And you couldn't meet random strangers on the internet who have the same life experience and the same concerns and the same objectives as you. That's almost equally, if not more depressing. So I think I agree wholeheartedly. If it turns out that none of the things that I think work about Bitcoin work, but I have all these people and we've all found alignment on these core principles and this idea that truth matters more than anything else, then yeah, I'll fucking take that.
It's just different, isn't it? Like these conversations and these experiences with people from my past, a lot of them. And I think like, what did we talk about? Like, what was the conversation? Like, how deep did it run? And looking back, about as deep as it got was some nonsense to do with politics where you're deciding, if something's a good idea or a bad idea without the nuance of like both ideas are fucking retarded. Like you go left or right, it's just dumb. Like you go Brexit or not Brexit, it's dumb. Like whatever you do is fucked. And that was about as deep as it gets. And now or like you say, like getting pissed and just like, you're feeling like shit the next day. And now the conversations that I'm having with Bitcoiners are about generational wealth. They're about how to build the citadel. They're about how to change the world. They're about how to do these brilliant things. And the conversations are so much deeper. Like people will like reach out to me who I've never met. And, they are the internet NIMS that I speak to. And they'll ask me like real questions like, you all right, mate? How are you doing? Like you seemed a bit down the other day, or whatever it is, and their genuine concern for people's happiness and how they're doing, and is there anything I can help you with? And that's always reciprocated, of course, but it is sort of the polar opposite of the fiat culture, which is exactly as you say. Work your nuts off in an office, come out, get absolutely plastered, talk about nonsense, and then you repeat the whole thing again. And it feels like a big distraction, all of the things that are being discussed now. I'll sit with a normie. A year ago it was, what do you think about Brexit? Did you go left or did you go right? I'm like, fuck off, I don't care. Now it's, what do you think about this new COVID rule? And you're just like, just fuck off. Like, just can we not like have a conversation that is not red versus blue or left versus right? We not have just a conversation about something deeper, because the things they're discussing, they don't understand at all. They're just reeling it off some fucking news channel. And it just gets to that point where it's so boring. I would choose to be alone every day of the week rather than speak to those people.
Yeah, no, I can definitely empathize. And that you can imagine I was much more of a political, I would argue politics a lot, like more so than most. And my whole thing, a decade ago was like, you guys need to be paying attention. Like you're watching your sports ball games and you're watching the Real Housewives and you're not seeing what they're doing and everything's falling apart. And then in some ways, like this time around, I've kind of you start to realize that a lot of what people are doing when they're doing that is they're seeking some kind of weird validation, right? Like they believe something, they want you to believe it too. They want uniformity. And I think it's almost it's almost something, it's something that we don't, I don't know if it's the right term is precognitive, but I always, things that we don't think about, but that influence our behavior. That's what I call it. It's almost like this, you see this urge amongst people to get everyone to agree, right? It's like, no, just put your fucking mask on. Like, why can't you just wear a fucking mask? Or like, hey, take your fucking mask off. Why do you have to tell me to wear it? And like, I clearly have, like, I'm on the freedom side of that, but you almost see this mentality of people who think it's not a mask that they want. It's not a shot that they want. It's not one leader or the other that they want. What they want is fucking consensus, right? Like they're begging for everyone to just go back to being all in agreement on all things. And that's the scary part, is it seems like the ship has sailed on that, right? It seems like we're at this point where it's almost like a mimetic escalation, where everyone is looking for everyone to get on board with their side or be killed, because we just need to get back to the point where we all agree on everything, and then it's going to be good going forward. And then incidentally, we all have this network that's sort of just pumping out these blocks, one block at a time, that says this is the truth. Now this is the truth. Now this is the truth. And that's the beauty of it. But I know what you mean. There's a lot of time wasted. There's a lot of energy wasted. There's relationships destroyed. And I think in some ways it's very good programming. Like, attention is a very valuable commodity. And there are people that have figured out, like, with algorithmic certainty, how to harness that attention, how to monetize that attention. And they're doing a very good job of it. And then on the other side of that, there's people who are possessed by this desire to have everyone agree with them and fight to the death about, whatever the bullshit political debate of the week is. And I think for the rest of us, it's just like, let's lay in the cut and let's wait them out.
Yeah, and there's no point in arguing with them. That is what I've learned, is just, there's no point in trying to convince someone to buy Bitcoin. There's no point in trying to convince someone your views on COVID and all the lockdowns and freedoms or anything like that. There's just a lot of time wasted. And people won't even now, like, when I do have to speak to normies, if an answer is, I don't know, or I don't care, or I don't care what you do, I'll just do what I'm doing, it's not sufficient for these people. It's like, they're like, oh, well, I've got the vaccine, I'm wearing the mask. I'm like, cool. If it makes you happy, then great.
Yeah.
As long as you're happy, I'm happy. Vaccinate yourself, have the mask, wear your mask by yourself in your car, wear it outside in 40-degree heat, get a little stupid tan mark where your mask has been, do it. If you're happy, fine. But then if I say, well, no, I don't want to do that, I don't want to inject myself with a foreign substance that I don't know what it's going to do, and if you want to do it, it's fine, that's not acceptable. So it's this weird, like, double standard of like, well, okay, I'll do what I want to do, but you also have to do what I want to do. And like this forcing of ideas, which no matter how much you try and break it down and like, reason with people of like, do you see how this is a little bit silly, what you're suggesting here? Do you see how this is being forceful? Do you see how this doesn't make any sense? And the answer is just no, like, no. And I think it's, like you said before, it's like this very cleverly played attention grab, and to allow people to just take their attention away from what really matters. And I can understand why you're doing your political stuff before, because you're like, okay, well, if we're going to change something, it has to be this way because it's the only system in town. This is the only way that we can do it. And yes, this matters more than the sports game or the housewives. Of course it does. But like, now we've got a system that actually can create change, like real actual change. And I think that's what's so addictive about it, is because it's like you feel like you're part of something. Like you feel like when you're working towards it, when you're stacking, when you're creating content, when you're having these discussions, creating ideas, you really feel like the world is moving forward. And that's such a empowering feeling. And, even if Bitcoin was to go away, I still think that there would be this common goal for freedom, there would still be this fight of, sovereignty over your body, sovereignty over your speech, and to stop all of this sort of nonsense. Because when you really play it forward and you think, well, if you want to have children or you've already got them, it's like, what am I going to pass down to these kids? Like, what am I going to do on my deathbed when I think, well, I didn't fight hard enough, I didn't try hard enough, I just went along with the status quo, I just went along with what everyone was doing because it was easy. I don't think that you would die happy. I think you'd probably die with regret.
Yeah, it's you said it before when you were talking about your experiences in the professional world, and I did as well. It's the lack of honesty, and that's when you think about if you tried to live your life, it would be a good exercise to do if you don't already. It sounds like you kind of intuitively already do it, but day in and day out, if you tried to go every day without saying something that was not true, it's a really interesting challenge, and it forces you to confront how much of all of our daily interactions are bullshit, right? Like even if it's someone says something like, hey, you want to come out and grab dinner next week, and you just genuinely don't want to go see that person, right?
Yeah.
You have the time. I could make the time. I could come see you if I wanted, but to be able to say like, no, thank you, instead of making an excuse because it's just become so convenient for us. And that's what I mean by it. It's everything from the little white lie that we, tell a friend to get out of dinner to the, oh, I'm going to tell my boss I was late because of this, or I'm going to cover this up or that up. At a certain point, I can't help but think that permeates your psyche to the point where you just do that to yourself. And that actually has been the most revealing thing to see about the people that I work with who I thought were intellectually honest types. Seeing how they've processed things that are clearly one way that they'll spin to be another way for themselves, and then from there you start to look at their everyday behaviors where, like I'll give you an example, this deal that came across our desk to finance a Bitcoin mining operation, right? I knew we weren't going to do this. There's no way we were going to invest in this. But but people that I work with are really interested and they want to learn more. So they'll tell the bankers like, oh yeah, count us in. We'd love to invest in this. We're in. So now I've got these bankers calling me and we're talking about this deal and they're like, oh yeah, this guy actually, he's really into this stuff, and then at the end of the process, we don't invest. And we could have circumvented the entire process by saying up front that we don't want to invest. But then I get the phone call from the banker saying, hey, I'm just trying to figure out why it is that your firm was so, interested in investing and now they're not investing. And the fact of the matter is, it was just because it was convenient for someone to say, oh yeah, we're really interested, send us all the information, but with, knowing that was never really going to happen, right? Like that person convinced himself that it's just in theory, we might be interested in this, knowing that we probably weren't. And it's these little white lies that start to compound and add up. And then the next thing you know, you find most people living their lives in a way where they've trained their mind to say, what is the most convenient and expedient thing that I can say in this moment to get what I want, as opposed to what is the true thing that might be hard to say. And it might take years before I realize the benefit of making the decision to say the one true thing here. But it really is. It's a corruption of truth that's pervasive in our culture. And, I think that has a lot to do with it.
It's a real hack, like efficiency gain through truth. It's pretty uncomfortable at times, but yeah, definitely. I mean, how much time is wasted in that situation? That you say, yes, you're interested. Someone goes away, gets everything prepped so that they can do a pitch for you or whatever it is they need to do, so that someone's going to invest. They get all excited. They then, before it's actually happened, go and tell their wife and friends, oh yeah, we've hopefully got this deal on the table. Everyone gets excited. There's all this energy buzzing around, and it is all absolutely fucking pointless, because all someone should have done is just gone, no, the likelihood is 99% I'm not investing in this, and good luck to you, but it's not for us. That's all that needs to be said. And it's maddening, because when it's happening half the time. Like the old thing where it's like, for example, oh yeah, do you want to go grab dinner? oh, well, look, what I'll do, I'll let you know because I've got this thing. And you start hearing this story and you're like, just say no. Just say no. Just say no. You don't have to go, no, because I actually think you're a fucking prick and I don't like you or your wife. And if I had to hear her tell one more story about her dog, I'm going to shoot myself in the head. You don't have to be that honest, but you can just say, I'm sorry, but I'm really busy at the moment. I just don't have time for it. And like, then the world keeps on turning. They go and spend time with someone that they're interested in. And I think this whole cutting people out thing is a really important thing you touched on. And I remember, like, very, very early on, people had said to me, you will become the 5 people that you are closest to. You will become them. If you're around people who are deep thinkers, they work hard, they care about honesty and truth, and they have certain lines they won't cross, etc., etc. You do start to become like them. And then you have other people in your life who you're like, well, I know every time I have this interaction with this person, I actually leave disappointed, or I've lost a couple of brain cells, or I don't actually enjoy it. And you keep repeating it because you don't want to hurt feelings or for whatever reason. And it wastes their time just as much as yours. So it's actually unkind to lie like that. It's just, like you say, I think it is a cultural thing. And I don't think you get away with the cutthroat honesty that we do in the Bitcoin society, like as you do in normal society. I just don't think that they are hardened for it yet.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, it's and it's not it's it's the society that creates, but then it's also what it does to your own mind, right? It's like, just from my own observational experience, the difference between waking up every day and saying to myself, like, look, I'm going to make every effort that I can today to not say something untrue ever. Once you start doing that, you start to have to reconcile with hard decisions, right? And you have to start to think about things like this. And then all of a sudden, once you've made some of those hard decisions, you don't want to then like sacrifice all of that integrity because someone asked you to dinner who you don't want to be impolite to by just declining politely. I think it definitely works at a bigger level, like a societal level. But I think most importantly, or more importantly than anything else, it works at an individual level where you start to see things and you're starting to process information that comes in day to day, where instead of thinking, how can I prove that I'm right? I'm going to, instead, I'm just going to try to figure out what is right. And it's a subtle difference, but it's a really important difference.
Yeah, it is. Have you ever given any thought to, obviously, like you said, you're still in your fiat job and you're earning your fiat money and stacking. And that's really smart. Like, for anyone who's listening, I didn't do that. And I regret it to some extent, not fully, but I do regret it to some extent. So if anyone's listening and you're in like a stable fiat job and you can stack, like, do that. Seriously, do that. But would there be a point for you where you went, no, I've hit this point where I want to either start a business around Bitcoin or something else, but that has been influenced by your sort of Bitcoin rabbit hole journey? Or would there be a point where you'd want to work in a business within Bitcoin? Or have you ever given that any thought? Would there be a point where you just go, no, I'm fully out of fiat now and I want to actually do something in this sort of community or start something?
Yeah, I've been giving that thought for a few years now, on and off, but over the last 12 to 18 months, it's been, hours and hours and hours per day. Hours per day of thinking that. And it's just a matter of what, right? Like, I'm in a predicament where I have children and I have a wife and, I have a family here that I support. And the fact of the matter is I'm sure that I don't think they're ever going to want for food. Like, as long as I can keep a shelter over their head and feed them and provide them with, the basics of life, then that's all you really need. And I don't think, like, I try not to worry about that stuff. It really just is a matter of what is the right thing to do and what do I actually know how to do. And that's the problem, right? Like, I basically geared my life from the time that I was at university. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to improve my lot in life. So I took advice from people who said, go into finance. That's where all the money is. And I ran hard at that. And I got to a place where, I was on the career treadmill. I was doing well. But you don't really learn anything. Like I don't have any tangible skills in an economy where you have to actually produce something apart from just work ethic, right? So what I've been doing lately is my father-in-law has a commercial bakery. He founded it almost 40 years ago, and he's an old man now. Like it's a very tough business. He sells to restaurants. Restaurants have been closed for 12 months, and now that restaurants are starting to open back up again, we can't find guys to work. So what I have been doing with my time is, while I'm working remotely in my fiat job, I've been spending time helping him try to salvage what's left of the business so that he doesn't feel like, so that he can leave something where he goes out feeling like his grandkids have something to take up. And that's been really nice and refreshing, because it's been working with people who actually depend on their paycheck, who aren't using money as a scoreboard, which is like my normal fiat job. Money is just a scoreboard, and everyone's trying to, be the number one leader in the fiat points board. This is more like, hey, these people have this job because they need this job, and this is what pays the bills for them. And if we don't figure out a way to keep the lights on while we're shut down, while the economy's shut down, they're not going to have a job. So I've been throwing myself at that a lot lately. But yeah, no, beyond that, I mean, I'm at the point where I want to do more than I'm capable of doing. So that's kind of why I don't know. I try to invest in Bitcoin projects when I can. I try to I think if I wanted to go and find a job that paid money, maybe I could. I don't really know what I would do in the Bitcoin economy yet. And I think about it all the time, right? Like I think about what are the things that I can do. And for now, it just seems like the best bet is to continue to mine fiat and buy things that people are selling in Bitcoin, and use the things that people are making with Bitcoin and contribute to Bitcoin causes, which I now need to do more of. And it's great, because that's actually starting to be more of a mature marketplace, right? Whether you want to donate to like what Jack Mahler's just did with open source devs, or you want to do open sats or something like that. There's a lot more ways to give back in that way. But no, that's just it. I'm trying to figure out what it is I'm going to do with the next phase of my life. And that's really exciting in a lot of ways.
It's really cool. And it's good that you're doing it that way around and giving it some thought, because I think a lot of people, we get, myself included, you get so wrapped up in what this thing can do. You're like, fuck, I don't care what it is. I just need to work in this industry. Like, this is it. I'm not doing anything else. And not everyone has a place right now, or it's hard to find it. It takes some time. And I think as this thing grows out, there's going to be more and more opportunities for more and more people. But the sort of diving straight off the cliff and just hoping for the best is not always the right thing, especially when, you have a family and you have kids. And I don't think there's anything wrong with mining fiat. Some people will say like, oh, well, if I carry on doing this fiat stuff, then, it's not good. It's against the ethos. It's like, well, just be realistic. Someone else is just going to fill that space, and you might as well have someone with strong hands who actually sees the future of this, who isn't just going to see, oh, we just had a 20% gain. Oh, okay, let's trade it. Let's trade this thing. Well, no, you want someone who's got strong hands. So I think there's no shame and there's no reason not to mine the fiat. And in many ways, I wish I'd have done the same.
Yeah, but you know what's wrong with it though is that it is, and I've gotten to the point. I think what's probably going to happen is that sooner rather than later there will be like a legit heart-to-heart conversation where, it's not working out between me and my fiat job. And eventually, like right now, I don't think they could find someone to replace me that would work for what I work for, that's going to do what they need them to do, et cetera. It's just a weird situational dynamic. But there's clearly an end in sight to that. and it's it's not long. Like there's probably only a few more years left of that. And that's the thing. As I think about like, okay, I'm gonna go mine more fiat to like go stack the incremental Bitcoin. That's actually not what I've been doing. So you said before about the 90% all in. I'm actually less than that, and it's not because I don't believe. It's because in some ways I just don't think it's the best use of what I'm doing right now. Like if that makes any sense. Like if Bitcoin works the way it's going to work, like put it this way, if the plebs out there are going to be like okay and all good, then I'm going to be all good. And so I don't really need to worry about much more than that, right? So I like no one ever has enough Bitcoin, but at the same time, like I've got enough Bitcoin. I think the next thing that I need to do is start thinking about how I can actually produce something that's of value for people who use this trend, who use this currency. And so, and even if it's not that, like mining fiat, I'll give you an example. Like, let's say you have a friend who has a great idea and he just is short a little bit of money, right? And you believe in his idea. Well, is it better? And this guy's not like, this is a real life example. This is not a Bitcoiner. This is someone I know from school growing up. He's got a great idea. He just can't scrape together. Let's put a number on it and call it 10 million sats, right? He can't scrape together 10 million sats to get his idea off the ground. Should I buy 10 million sats for myself to put away, or should I, lend that guy 10 million sats and just say, hey, I'm lending you this money. I'll get short Bitcoin for you. Over time, you pay me back, no interest, whatever the dollar price is at the time you're paying me back, convert it to Bitcoin, pay me back, right? So now I've got no KYC Bitcoin. I don't know what the price is going to be, but I don't have to worry because the more I put my fiat income stream into this sort of thing, the more I'm kind of like passively stacking at future prices, which again, who cares, right? Like it's all kind of irrelevant. But if I give him the leverage that he needs to get 1 year or like 6 months ahead of the game, what does that buy for him? And then what's the return going to be on that for everyone around? This guy happens to be growing. He's not doing full permaculture. He's a permaculture guy who's trying to make do with what he's got as a setup today. So if you can do those things, it's almost like that's what, to me, Bitcoin buys me. And that's my path out of fiat. It's really not about how do I make a bigger fortune? It's more about how do I put my energy into the world in a way that's going to get the most back from it. The problem with the fiat, man, this is the paradox, is that I think for right now, while this fiat check is still available, I've got to take it. But what's entailed in taking it is, it's becoming harder and harder every day to do that, and to stay true to myself and be a good employee all at the same time, right? Like it's if you really are being honest with people, then you have to call their bullshit. And if you call their bullshit, then you're not really going to be very employable for very long. So I think that's what's probably going to happen, is just at a certain point, that dynamic will get to a point where it breaks, and then I'll have to go figure something else out, and I will. But until then, it's more about, it's more about mining that fiat in a way that I can live with, and trying to use that on the other side to help, get things off the ground that we need to get off, or that I think we need to get off the ground, right? It's me putting my little thumbprint on the universe.
Well, yeah, in a lot of ways that is more impactful, because you can say, well, without my funding, this would not have happened, and I think it's something that's really good, and I think it's something that should happen, and that's a nice feeling. And a lot of the time as well, these things can pay off. It's it can be a financial success, but it can also make you feel good and make you sleep well at night, and it can make a change in someone's life. If your friend that you're talking about didn't have that funding, and maybe he'd go into a traditional bank or something like that and go, right, can I have this funding for this permaculture thing that I'm doing? And they're going to go, well, what the fuck is permaculture? Let me see the business plan. Well, maybe we'll lend you something, but at 20%. And it just means that these great ideas don't get off the ground. So no, I have massive respect for that. And I think it probably does make more of a difference.
Yeah, it's like I'm just thinking about that particular example. Because I spoke to this guy tonight. It's interesting. Like all he wanted was to buy some hoop houses to put up, to get some seedlings started, early in the season, and to extend the growing season a little bit. He's a chef. He knows the restaurateurs who want to buy these locally sourced great business plan, as good a business plan as everything. Compare that to the business plan we just got from Michael Saylor today that came across my desk to look at, where it's like, hey, will you lend money at 6% backed by a fixed amount of Bitcoin? And I think it's a great trade. And like I told the guys that I work with, this is a great speculative attack on the dollar, because he's going to prove that the market demands this as collateral over most other things. But it's like, where are you going to invest your money? You're going to invest your money in a micro strategy bond to get 6% interest backed by a fixed amount of Bitcoin? Or do you give your money to a guy who's got an idea to get a business off the ground where he's going to grow microgreens on a quarter of an acre and sell them to local restaurants, and that's going to create a good local food chain for him, an income stream for his family, and food for his local population. And the beauty of it is, when I talked to that guy about doing this, it was the end of last year. I'm doxing my location, but that was thunder in the background.
I wonder what that was.
Yes, I can't change the weather, and I can't figure out a way to mute it. I thought I was in a nice quiet place, but so this guy, I made this deal with him, and I was like, Bitcoin's at, when we finally signed on the dotted line, I told him, look, these are the terms. I want to say Bitcoin was probably back when it was between 45 and 50,000, something like that. And I thought, shit, who knows what price I'm going to get these at. And he called me today. He's like, hey, I'm ready with your first payment. Let me know how to do this. And I was like, this is actually great. Had I just panic bought 10 million sats in January or February, I would be worse off. But now this guy's better off, I'm better off. Might have worked the other way. Might have been that I'm getting them at a much higher price. I was kind of reconciled to that fact. But that's another way you can go about it. And by the way, that came out of just a sheer I need to figure out a way to get non-KYC Bitcoin, because the vast majority of my Bitcoin have been KYC, and I don't, that's not how I want to do this going forward. I almost kind of, unless I'm buying something right now to send to someone right now, where I'm going to report to the IRS a zero basis transaction, and use the Bitcoin to spend. Unless I'm doing that, I'm not buying KYC anymore, right? So I kind of need to find creative ways to do that, and this is one such way.
Yeah, all these ways is brilliant. The more of these sort of SAT income streams that you can set up, it brings it to a point where you are dollar cost averaging. You're just constantly stacking, but through all these different streams that are no KYC. And I'm really pleased you said that it ties in with what you were saying before about, you don't want to fund these wars. You don't want to fucking be part of the system that is so corrupt. And there are so many Bitcoiners who are like, bring down the government, stop the wars, do all this. But I'm going to go to a KYC exchange, give them all my details. They will tax me. They will get it. I can be have as many fucking boating accidents as I want. But when they lock you up or take away your other assets, you are going to give it over for the vast majority. And so no KYC is incredibly important going forward. And that is a novel way of doing it. And there are so many creative ideas out there where people are either swapping goods or services, or you've done, effectively a loan where you paid back in sats, and all these different things, and it's very creative, and it strengthens the network. The way that I look at it is, the more no KYC sats, the more that things are coin joined, the more we can make it difficult for the people that are going to come into this place and, basically try and rape every one of their sats. It makes their job very, very difficult, if not impossible.
That's exactly right. And that's the thing. It's in some way, and it's not to make yourself a fucking martyr. No one should make themselves a martyr. But if you're at the point where, the incremental Bitcoin the incremental sats that you buy is not really that relevant to the overall picture for you, it's well, then why not get short sats on behalf of someone else and let them get a little bit ahead, and they'll pay you back in time. And effectively, this is a 0% interest loan, right? Pay me back when you can. Just at the time you're paying me back, convert the dollars that you owe me into Bitcoin and pay me back in Bitcoin, and we'll be cool. And it's surprising, like, because this is what I racked my brain over for a long time, thinking about, like, what could I sell to get Bitcoin? And everything seemed to be just a little cheesy. Like, I thought about trying to sell expensive designer bags, like handbags for ladies, for a 10% loss. I actually have a domain that I held for this, where I was thinking, like, I'll go buy a $10,000 bag and I'll sell it for 9,500 in Bitcoin, and I'll get no KYC coin. And if it gets big enough, I'll be able to syndicate this out. And, like, look, that premium is better than what I pay on Bisq. But then eventually it was like, oh, wait a minute, you need some money and you're a friend of mine and I trust you. And, like, I know that you'll try to do everything you can to pay me back. And if you can't, no big deal, because, like, I know that I will have known that you tried. No interest, just pay me back in Bitcoin at some point in the future. And, like, that's a great way to get no KYC sats and a great way to help someone that you believe in.
For sure. My fear with that, and maybe it's just because I'm an arsehole, but every time that I have lent people money, I've not get it back. Every time I've... Yeah, no, like, well, we're talking about speak the truth, speak honestly.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I have had probably 6 different occasions now where I would say life-changing money to me, money that made an impact to my life, I've lent out to people that were supposedly friends, and I've not had it back. I've had cars taken. I've put people up in houses for over a year and they just fuck off. And so for me, maybe it's very unlucky. Maybe it's just because I'm an arsehole. I don't know. I don't know what it is. It could just be complete luck. But everyone's taken the piss. And recently, like 6 months ago, I lent a fair amount of money again to someone who was trying to get their house sold but couldn't finish what they needed doing so that they could get the planning stuff signed off so they could sell it. And I was like, look, they couldn't get any money from the bank, they wouldn't lend it, and they were in a real pickle. And I was like, look, I'll give you the money. I gave it to them in cash. Just the same thing, give it back to me when you can afford to give it back. We've known each other for years. Nothing. No phone call, drops off the earth, nothing. And you just get to the point, well, for me, I've got to the point where I'm like, I just can't do that anymore. Like, I just, like, my trust with that kind of stuff is just completely gone. And then what do you do? Is it like, all right, well, I'll take some collateral, I'll take your watch, I'll take something, I'll take the logbook for your car.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
You shouldn't, right? At that point, you shouldn't. At that point, they should just go, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's unfortunate, and that might be my future for all I know. I guess the only the comfort is that you size it accordingly. It's not like, look, so I'll be out that many Bitcoin that I might have had if I had bought Bitcoin instead, but I'll feel great if this guy gets off the ground. And it's a really there's so many of these things that it's like there's this idea that you don't trust, verify, right? But also you should trust, because if you don't trust, then there's a lot of these. It goes back to what you were saying too about the debating political stuff versus not. Like, if no one debated political stuff, if all of us just took the attitude that, well, fuck off, I don't have time for you, I'm just going to figure it out for myself and you can go figure it out for yourself. In some ways, you have to wonder whether or not we would ever get to where we want to be, because it does take people who give of their time very freely, which is another weird thing about the Bitcoin economy. You have all these people who are doing something because they're passionate about it, not because they're trying to monetize it. So you'll try to you'll go, for example, book an appointment with Catan to do a Ministry of Nodes call and try to pay him for his time. He's like, no, man, I do, just pay me what you think it's worth. It's you have these people who are trying so hard for something that they don't want to charge you for their time because they believe in it, but at the same time you want to give them for their time. It's a weird dynamic that gets to, it hits every part of what we're doing. And in this case, it hits the point about trust. Like, you don't want to trust, you want to verify everything, but at the same time, if we never had trust in any people, if we never, so I always think about it in terms of spooks in the Bitcoin network, right? Like nobody is looking for spooks more than people in Bitcoin and, like the Monero set, like everyone is a spook, right? But if I believe everyone's a spook, then we'll never be able to bootstrap the trust that it's going to take to get some of these social networks or social layers off the ground. And so in that regard, I think at some point you have to be willing to just, take a breath and say, as long as this is a risk that I'm willing to take, I'm going to eyes open, take this risk and live with the consequences of it. Because otherwise, it's weird. Like if you never argue with anyone about politics, then, no one ever gets red pilled or orange pilled or black pilled or white pilled or whatever pilled people are handing out these days. So it's walking that balance where you shouldn't really spend most of your time doing this, but at the same time, if people hadn't spent their time doing it against their better judgment and trusting that it was going to work, that there's a plan, that there's something that matters behind all of this, then, we wouldn't be where we are.
Yeah, it's true. It is slightly different in Bitcoin because your reputation, you only have one chance. Like in fiat culture, people don't really give a fuck. They just move town, move on, whatever. Like it doesn't seem to really matter. But for example, if I said, you said, "Oh, I've just ordered myself a pizza and I haven't got any money in my bank account. Can you send me some cash?" I'd be like, "Oh, cool, I'll send you." And then if you didn't pay me back, I'd go, "That fucking Daddy Warbits is a right cock. He said he was going to pay me back and he didn't." And I'd post it on Twitter and everyone would call you out and they go, "You arsehole, why haven't you paid him back? Fucking pay him back for the pizza." Yeah. And you lose that reputation. And the thing is that reputation is very, very valuable because the people that we get to communicate with, these bonds that we make, are very, very valuable, very helpful. And you only get one chance. Whereas in fiat society, it is not the same. You seem to, it doesn't seem to mean anything. Like a deal with a handshake means nothing these days. Like I was brought up where if you do a deal and you shake someone's hand, even if it goes against you and you think, fuck, I shouldn't have done that, I've been offered more, things have changed, it doesn't matter because that the way that you're viewed by other people and how you actually go through life is more important than just the money. And so it's returned to that within this community.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the other interesting thing about that though is that we have a protocol that your penalty for being outside the protocol is that you're outside the protocol, right? Mm-hmm. So when people are like, you can't be dishonest at the base layer, and your penalty for being dishonest at the base layer is that you get kicked off the base layer, but you can always come back in. And I think you're right, though. You see how long it would take to build that trust. And that gets back to another, like it's the similar dynamic about trust and verify when it comes to the social layer, which is one of those things that I'm really, it's a challenge that I don't think we've begun to solve yet, which is to say, like, there are people in this network, right, who have assets, who have, skills, who would be willing to give of themselves to everyone else in this network if they had a little bit of trust. And it's how do you scale from that base layer on-chain trust to the interpersonal relationship? Like, I listen to the guys that come on your show and that talk to you about permaculture, and I'm like, man, I would love to work with some of these guys. Like, and that there's thousands and thousands of them out there. So it's that dynamic of there's all these people that you want to trust, but the second that you're willing to do things for Bitcoiners in a weird way that you wouldn't be willing to do for anyone else. But then we still haven't figured out how to actually make that work at scale, which is that's something that I'm really keen to try to figure out. Like if I knew someone's 2 or 3 degrees removed from you, for example, right? And I'm like, listen, I've been listening to this guy for 2 years. I know what he's about. Like, if this is the guy that's going to end up bringing me down in the end, then so be it. I'll make peace with that. Like, if Max is a spook and this is all a setup, then great. Like, some guy is going to be able to take advantage of me for a small amount of gain. I'm willing to take that risk. But then the problem becomes, how do you start to scale that? And I think that's something that we all, should be thinking about.
Definitely, it'd be nice to have something measurable, because everything is just gut right now, and you can be low time preference, and you can sort of think about these networks as something that have value without actually bringing an income. Like you're talking about Catan or Bitcoin Q&A or anyone who's like helping people, and a lot of these guys will do it for free for a long time, like crazy long time. They're putting, they already have jobs, they're working this on top. I don't know how they have the time to do what they're doing. You have other idiots like me who have not earned a penny for 2 years because we're just making content and creating art and doing all sorts of things. But it's not a selfless act. Like you could say it and you could frame it like, oh wow, how selfless, like that's so kind. It's not all kindness. In fact, most of it is that you're saying, well, I'm going to have a low time preference view on this. And although there's no income now, the value in the networks that are being created, the value in the trust that is built between others, is that, you feel confident, or certainly I do, that, it might be 5 years down the line, it might be 10 years down the line, but the people that I interact with, hopefully you make a good impression, hopefully you have a good bond, and they'll say, hold on, you work as an artist, or you work as this, can you help me with this? And I think a lot of people are looking at it like that. A lot of people are confident enough that this is the new economy. The Bitcoiners are the ones that are going to hold the wealth. They're the ones that with the creative ideas. They're the ones that are building. They're the ones that are pushing forward. So work with them. And yeah, okay, you might not earn money today, but you will tomorrow.
Amen. That's what it's about. It's about, and that's from the outsider's perspective, right? Like not everyone will have a successful podcast, and not everyone will have a successful blog, and not everyone will be someone who, whose name everyone else, but that's also the beauty of the NIM, is we all have all these different opportunities to participate in different ways. Like I want to see a world where NIMs hold public office, where NIMs can get elected without ever doxing their voices, but just have a platform. Like we could get to this world, where a lot of that other stuff, where a lot of the bad incentives from fiat world are irrelevant. And that's the world I want to live in. And it's, it sounds like that's the world you want to live in too. You have these people, you have like, it's a really exciting time because we're all participating in this together. We're all trying to figure it out in real time. But at the same time, we're in uncharted waters. It's a mind blower to think about how much opportunity is in front of us, and then to think about how much time you might waste on you then put your fiat work into the context of that bigger picture. And all of a sudden you're thinking to yourself, like, what am I really doing with my life? Like, what do I want to do with my life? Who are the people that I want to work with? What's the economy that I want to tap into? And it becomes so compelling that this is where you want to spend your time, that this is what you want to allocate yourself to. And you kind of know, like, I don't know, maybe it's Pollyanna-ish, but I think we're going to figure it out. Like, I think that we're on the right side of these things. And if we're not, then we'll lose, but we'll lose with grace, and we'll lose putting up a fight, and we'll lose, fighting for what we believed in.
Absolutely. I'd very much like to wait until this guy pays you back, the permaculture guy, because if he doesn't, then fuck him. But if he does, I'd be interested to hear a little bit further down the line. I don't know whether he'd want to come on the show, but it'd be cool to hear more about what he's doing, because anything that's being funded, and anything that's like a Bitcoin loan, anything that's moving the world forward, I want to hear about. So I don't know whether you maybe could put that to him once he's paid you back, but that would be cool.
Yeah, for sure. We haven't spoken in a while. I just spoke to him today for the first time in a while. He actually mentioned, I think, and this was part of the intent, was to somewhat send him down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. He is not a Bitcoin person. He's a person who is basically, he busts his balls to make money as a chef to provide for his family, but his passion is to grow food. And so I, for whatever reason, when I was speaking with him, I thought he just felt like he was primed for this. And, he was talking to me about it today. He was like, yeah, I've been doing the research on how I can do this and how I can pay. So my goal is that I'm going to like get him spun up with his own, eventually he'll have a wallet and he'll learn how to use it. And I think we might end up getting him to the right outcome just by virtue of the fact that he had to figure out how to pay back a loan in Bitcoin and learn the rest from there. But yeah, I'll definitely keep you updated on how that goes. And for the record, there are other people that I've lent some money to for other random things that are just life things, and all of that has worked out fine so far. So knock on wood, so far so good with the zero interest, I'll short the sats for you loans.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, that would be cool. And one more thing before we close it out, because we've been on for, I think, almost 2 hours now, just flying by. But I wondered, because I don't get to speak to a lot of guys in finance. As I said, I've sort of gone away from this. I've gone very much more down the privacy and security rabbit hole because I was bad at it and wanted to learn. But it'd be interesting to hear from you, being that it is your job. Like, where do you don't have to give me moon predictions, but where do you see this thing going? And do you have like one particular reason or a couple of reasons why you really think it and that really make you confident?
That's a tough one. I will say, like, my overarching view is that, and I'm going to use the Matt Odell line and just say that Bitcoin is designed to pump forever, because I do think that is like the simplest way of distilling the truth of the matter into a meme that everyone can comprehend. Like, all right, it's a tough one to end on, but if you think about what it is to save money, you're effectively saying that the work that I've done today is work that I wish to consume at a future date. And if I think that the value that humanity will produce for me is going to be lower in the future, then I would be inclined to say that I should spend that money sooner rather than later. But if I think the value that humanity will produce for me in the future is greater than what the dollar price indicates today, then I would be marginally inclined to save that for the future. And I think you have that on steroids with Bitcoin for the reasons we talked about, because by me saving Bitcoin, I'm investing in the productivity of all of the people in the Bitcoin economy. So I've just, like, very simple, basic, you think about, at one point in time we were in the Iron Age, and then we were in the Oil Age, and I think now we're in like something like the Information Age. I think as more and more things become abstracted and become digitized, the currency to be free, to get access to information, to get access, like that's going to be the most important thing in the future. And there's nothing better to me than a finite, a provably scarce asset that can denominate all of that had, like, I guess just take a step back, and it's obvious to anyone who's looked at this for any period of time. Is Bitcoin the perfect money? Probably not. There's things that I wish we were a little bit more private at the base layer. I wish that it wasn't so subject to rehypothecation and financialization. But is there ever going to be anything as good as this? Also, probably not. So if we have this asset that is provably scarce, that's not growing over time, and the productivity of all of the people who price their time in this monetary unit is increasing, then I just see it as me, like, and this, I guess it gets back to the point, like, I don't really need Bitcoin to work for my life. Like, my life will be okay. I'll figure out a way to feed my family, and it's a very privileged position, I recognize, but like, I will figure out a way to feed my family, to provide the basics. But to me, this is a way of me saying that the people who are working in their lives towards this economy where truth is what matters, where value for value is what matters, that's the economy that I want to invest in. So like, I wouldn't want my savings to be in anything other than that. So like, as far as price goes, how it plays out, I have no idea. There's one scenario where it, like, imagine Scaramucci gets up there and, he's pumping this fully custodial, like, crazy fork of Bitcoin, and then maybe Michael Saylor turns, and all the people that the boomers are watching on CNBC are pumping this crazy weird fork, and the number goes up, and like, yeah, great, we all get rich off that, but then maybe there's this other thing where we all can maintain a node somehow. Like, I guess it's just, I try to stay really fucking humble about the fact that I have no idea where this is going to go, but I know that the right thing to do is to invest in the people and the productive energies that I see gravitating towards this. And so, like, will the Bitcoin that I own today be worth more tomorrow? Absolutely. Am I going to be able to repeat what I would have been able to repeat had I gone back to 2013 and like put all of my net worth into Bitcoin at, whatever, $50? Like, no, that trade is over. Like, the people who got in early, who made life-changing billionaire fortunes, I don't think that happens again. But what I think happens is we're going to rebuild a great civilization, and it's not going to be, like I said at the beginning, it's really not about where the price is when I die. It's about, does Bitcoin still exist when I die? Is this something that I can pass on, that my kids understand enough to keep going for generations? It's going to take a long time. And like, there are going to be people that are into it for that. And there are going to be people that are into it for the fact that you can make life-changing wealth in short order. And I think both of those people will be right. I think the life-changing wealth in short order people will be right sporadically. And the ones that, pursue only that, a fair number of them will get wrecked along the way. But that's the best way I can describe it. It's very hard to, I just don't think anyone has any idea. Like, Bitcoin could be at $2 million next year. It could be at $50,000 next year. As long as we're still doing what we're doing right now, to me, it works.
Yeah, I agree with you. I completely agree with you. And I do think about these moon numbers, but like you said, it doesn't really matter because one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. It's just going to be interesting to watch it. And I'm glad you said you don't know, because I hear too many people just like so confidently because of whatever model or whatever it is, because they've divided something by something that they suddenly know. And you just think it's like, well, gold is this, so we're definitely going to be 10 times that. We're like, well, what do you mean definitely? Right. You don't definitely mean, because you don't fucking know.
Never underestimate the capacity for fuckery. Like, there is a huge capacity for fuckery, and that fuckery can last for a long time. Like, the beauty of Bitcoin is that we can force a bank run, right? We can all, that's probably my biggest fear, is that we get to a point where all these people coming in buy Bitcoin, they buy on KYC exchanges. Those KYC exchanges become roach motels where any sats that come in stay there and they never leave, or at least they don't leave for our lifetime. And then the next thing you know, we have this like weird bifurcated system where, you can't move Bitcoin freely. Well, you can move Bitcoin freely from your address to someone else's address, but once you put them on a KYC service, they're gone forever and they're captive. Like, I don't know what a world looks like where 90% of the Bitcoin is on this KYC ramp that you can't get off of until the ramp implodes, and who knows what that looks like. But that's why it's so hard to predict, because we have the ability to force the bank run. Like, we have the ability to take custody for ourselves and to make sure that this rehypothecation can't happen. But, I think it's naive to expect that that's not going to be how it goes at first. And I don't even, look, that might mean number go up a lot, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not the same as, and I think we'll still be able to have the kind of economy that we want to have on the side. One Bitcoin will still be one Bitcoin. There'll be a premium for non-KYC, non-exchange Bitcoin. So I don't foresee a scenario where my Bitcoin go back to the exchange, because look, you can send it back to the exchange. You'll always have that option. You might as well keep it off. But that's the thing. It's very difficult. And I think we just have to make sure that we, at least in my life, I want to make sure that I'm trying to keep in mind that this is bigger than me. This is bigger than what kind of house I end up in my life. This is more about whether or not we do something as generations that benefit humanity into, what we do in life echoes in eternity. I think that's what this is about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for anyone listening, just remember that when you're stacking, just remember that the no KYC stuff, not only is it important for freedom and important for future generations, but also I 100% agree with you. It is going to be worth more, the non KYC real Bitcoin that you can actually send and actually use and actually runs on the network is going to be way more valuable. So don't concern yourself with, oh, it's 1% more or 2% more on BISC or hodl. Find ways to earn in sats, find ways to do these kind of things with loans, or do whatever it is you have to do. Go and do that, get some no KYC sats and move this thing forward.
Amen.
It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Hopefully we'll chat for a couple of minutes offline as well, just so I make sure I get the audio. Every time I have these sort of conversations, we've never spoken before. I've really appreciated you sharing and letting me know that you enjoyed the show. That meant a lot. Like every time I get one of those messages, it lights my day up. It just makes me think, fuck, this is all worth it. Like someone's enjoyed, and it really makes me happy to hear that. So thanks for the support, and thanks for coming on the show and everything that you're doing. And it's been a pleasure. I hope one day we can grab a beer or something like that, and you can be honest and say, no, fuck off, I don't want to spend any time with you, and I can say good.
Thank you. But for the fact that there are people that decided, you know what, fuck it, I am going to start another podcast, and I'm going to have people like, we need that, and it's been so valuable to have more voices and more people, and to check myself and be like, yeah, you know what, we're right, they're fucking wrong. So I have such an appreciation for what you're doing.
Thank you, mate. All right, well, any sort of last wise words of wisdom to leave people with?
No, I would hate to try to come up with words of wisdom. Everyone keep doing what you're doing. Ignore a lot of the noise and focus on the longer term, and make sure it's meaningful to you. Make sure it's something that make sure you're fully integrated as a person, and you're ready to, stand up and face the world forthrightly, and the rest of it will come.
I love it. Thanks for coming on, mate. And take care. We'll speak soon.
Thank you.